So our next speaker is Laurie Adamshick, who is an attorney here in town. We are very pleased to have Laurie not only with us today, but also on the Kōkua Mau board. So Laurie is offering her expertise to the board of directors of Kōkua Mau, and I really enjoyed talking with her for the last couple of years and having that legal perspective. So I really appreciate you sharing your, again, sharing your wisdom with us, and take it away.
Thanks. Can everyone hear me first off? Yes? Okay, good, good. I'm an elder law attorney, and I have a unique practice with a great partner and a wonderful gal who is our nurse. And we work mostly with older families, older folks and their families, in helping them with long-term care planning and making good decisions. This is a model called life care planning. And what I thought I'd talk to you about today is give you some things to think about in terms of how to help your own parents as they're getting older. None of it is going to be relevant, though, unless we first think about how you think about your parents. Take a moment to consider how you think about them. Do you think of them as helpless at this point, or obstinate, or in denial? Those are common attitudes, and a lot of us tend to look at our to-do lists, and they're another item to be checked off on the to-do list. We got to get mom and dad squared away, and all of that I want you to be aware of, because it's not going to be helpful to you in the long run when you get started trying to help them. The first thing I want you to think about is consider them being just like you in an older body. They are just like you in an older body. You don't want to give up your independence and control, neither do they. And they need to see you as a partner in helping them make good decisions, not as a boss or as a dictator or as a bossy dictator. They aren't going to appreciate your swooping in to help to push them into decisions that they aren't ready to make or don't want to make. I've been watching the show Grace and Frankie on Netflix lately, and oh my gosh, that show is full of all of these issues. Folks that are beginning to need a little help, and the kids are trying to figure out how to help them. It's important that you first take some time to consider that they should have a voice in all of this. So the first thing you need to do is initiate a conversation. This is a conversation that they may have been putting off. They may not know how to approach it. They may have hoped that you would start this thing because, you know, they're not sure how you feel about it. It's got to start somewhere, and it's often helpful if it starts from you showing concern about making good decisions for them later on. There are tools available that can help you with this. AARP has a very good guidebook. It's a book really called Planning for Long-Term Care that will succinctly help you grasp the scope of what you have to talk about and how to start the conversation. And if you've got somebody in the family that's argumentative or very emotional, and it's difficult to get the family together to have these conversations, consider the Mediation Center of the Pacific. They have a Kupuna Pono program. They have trained facilitators who can help you in a family meeting figure out what the agenda is for helping mom and dad, break it down, and kind of take some of the emotions out of the whole issue. Great resource in our community. So that's where you start. Number two, get their estate planning and their legal and financial affairs addressed by an elder law attorney. They may have estate planning that was done 20 years ago. They put it on the shelf. They haven't looked at it since. It might be outdated. people might have died in the interim. They may have changed their minds about who they want us to be their agents to speak for them when they can't. Get it out, get it updated, take the opportunity to use this to continue the conversation with them. Very important to have a current power of attorney, a current advanced healthcare directive, so that in case of emergency, you've got the tools to be able to step in and help them. Without that, you can end up spending a lot more time and money needlessly on guardianship and conservatorship, which would be unfortunate. Moving on, aging in place. Everybody wants to age in place. Nobody wants to move out of their home, but we need to help our parents understand that there is a cost associated with this, that there's a cost associated with making the home safe enough for them to be able to stay there. And why is that? Because the primary risk to them at this point in life is a fall. Fall risks are, that is the biggest problem they face. 90% of hip fractures are the result of falls. And one bad fall can trigger the decline that takes you to the end of your life. So they need to understand that this is more than just putting up grab bars. They may need to widen doorways. They may need to increase access to the bathroom and the shower so that it's not they don't have to step over a tub to get into the shower because that creates a fall risk. They need to think about a lot of things that they perhaps never thought of before. Clutter is a huge one. All those piles of magazines and papers that are in the hallway make it more difficult to be able to walk down the hallway. It presents a fall risk. Not to mention it could be food for rodents and cockroaches. There are personal emergency devices that are available that they may have to get used to wearing, as opposed to, if they're going to age in place, as opposed to being in for instance, an assisted living facility where all of these safety measures have already been taken for them. So this is just the beginning of what they need to start to think about. At some point in the future, when they need more help, they may need to hire a companion to come into the home to help them, get in the shower or to help them prepare meals. They may need a nurse's aide overseen by a registered nurse to manage medications so that there's no hiccups there. This is all part of the cost of aging in place. It is something people rarely talk about. Everyone wants to age in place because it's more convenient and it's cheaper. Well, not necessarily. So they need to be educated about all of these areas. The loss of the opportunity to drive is a huge problem for most people. So it's a great idea to start early in developing other transportation options for them. If they are eligible for the handy van because they've got mobility issues, get them the handy van pass. That's a $4 trip one way. It may take longer than, excuse me, longer than if you've driven them, but it could be very handy in a pinch when you need a ride. Teach them how to use rideshare services. Teach them how to use Lyft and Uber, and there's a couple of local rideshare services that have developed here on the island. And there is I just discovered this on the Jitterbug phone for seniors. Lyft has worked out a alliance with Jitterbug so that owners of a Jitterbug smartphone only have to press 0 to be connected to an operator who will send them a ride. Simple as pie. And they need to get used to that because it'll take a lot of the burden off of you to come and pick them up and take them back on every occasion. They can get rides to church, rides to the grocery store. Speaking of church, talk to their church families about whether or not somebody might be available to come and take them to church on Sunday. Catholic Charities offers volunteers to take folks to medical appointments. There's a waiting list, so get them on the waiting list. Maybe they don't have a lot of medical appointments right now, but chances are they will. That will just increase with time. So put them on the waiting list now, so that it'll be an available option when they need it. Get to know the people that are all around them, like their neighbors, the mail carrier, the yard man, friends that you see from time to time at their house. Get to know them, let them know that you're available, give them your phone number in case of emergency, and let them know that if anything develops, you want to hear about it. Sometimes you can set up a kind of an I'm okay system with one of the neighbors, where mom opens the blinds in the morning as a signal to the lady across the street that she's okay. And if the blinds don't open, that lady knows, I better call that daughter because something's wrong. The blinds aren't open. Simple way to say, I'm okay. And in this day and age of scams, make sure that you talk and talk and talk to them about how they are being targeted by criminals who are coming after them because of their age and perceived inability to defend themselves. Education is so key here. They need to be informed regularly, often, about the latest scams that are in the neighborhood. On the news the other night, they said HECO, people are calling saying they're from the Hawaiian Electric and your power is going to be turned off. People need to understand that HECO doesn't make those calls any more than Social Security makes calls saying that your number has been compromised and you need to set up a new number with us. Those are all scams. There is a great resource from AARP called the Fraud Watch Network that you can access online with wonderful information, and they have a scam tracking map online that will show you the island of Oahu with little dots on it, and when you click on the dots, you'll get a report of a scam that somebody has reported in their neighborhood. So you can find out what's happening in Hawaii Kai or what's happening at Eva Beach. People report these scams on this map, and it just increases awareness. And that's really what it's all about, increasing awareness. I want to make mention of the fact that there's a lot of coronavirus scams going on right now. There's a lot of folks that are approaching seniors with claims of treatments, claims of cures, trying to get them to order face masks, which if they order will never arrive, and give to charities that are going to support medical workers or first responders. By and large, all scams. So most important advice that you can give to parents is don't answer the phone. If it's important, they'll leave a message. If you do answer the phone and something doesn't sound right, hang up. Don't press any numbers. Don't press 2 to take your name off an email list. Just hang up. And if you are online, don't click on anything. And even if it's something a friend has sent you, don't click on it. These are common sense messages that we're quite used to, but they need to hear repeatedly. Help your parents create a medical inventory. This is perhaps a 3-ring binder where you can keep contact information for all of their doctors, list of prescriptions, summaries of the latest doctor visits. It might be a good idea to make copies of their insurance cards, front and back sides. And if they have long-term care insurance, make a copy of the summary page that will remind you that there's coverage and the extent of the coverage. This could be very helpful in case you have to suddenly jump in place of your dad and suddenly make decisions and need to know who the doctors are and how to reach them. By the same token, make a financial inventory binder or booklet for yourself with the help of your parents. Again, this is intended to help somebody coming in from the cold know where the assets are, where the accounts are, who to talk to, and what's available, what expenses are available, what income is available to pay bills in case suddenly you're incapacitated. This is all preventative stuff that can be helpful later on. If your parent is online, create a digital account inventory. This is a more simple document where you can record all of their online accounts. Maybe it's email, social media, perhaps a bank account, put the passwords in there. In some cases, you may want to record what they want done with the account once they're gone. Facebook has memorial pages and ways that you can designate what happens to your social media page. That all needs to be, excuse me, to be recorded somewhere and kept in a safe place, obviously. If there's even a small chance that your parent at some point will say that maybe they might like to move into an assisted living community, or they would at least consider it, tour them together now and get them on all the waiting lists. Again, these waiting lists, we live on a little island and there are lots of waiting lists. So the sooner they're on the list, the better. They can always decline later when their name comes up if they're not ready to go, but at least they'll have the opportunity or the option. There are a lot of folks out there that still think that they're bulletproof in their 80s and 90s, and they can be really difficult to talk with because they don't see themselves as ever being incapacitated. The most important advice here is not to scold, not to nag, not to argue. It doesn't work. It won't get you anywhere. The better approach is to help them understand that if something happens to them, that decisions are going to have to be made. They're going to have to be made either with them or without them. But either way, they're going to have to be made. And wouldn't it be better that they be made with their input rather than leaving it to someone else? You've got to let them have their choice. You've got to let them know that you will honor their choice, but it doesn't hurt to let them know that if their choice is to decline talking about it, that you fear that at some point this means that they're going to be sacrificing control over the rest of their lives because they're not discussing it with anyone. And now someone else is going to make decisions for them. You can tell them that you'll do the best you can when things fall apart. But it would certainly be better to hear their voice and their preferences before that happens. A lot of folks will fail to take action if they perceive that it's only for their benefit. However, if they perceive that perhaps this could be helpful to their kids, then suddenly you've got their attention. So we often try to turn the conversation to how important this is, what a gift to the children these conversations are, because the time comes, the kids are going to be freaking out because there's going to be a crisis, and suddenly this failure to talk is an unintended burden. And now the kids they're losing sleep at night, they're feeling guilty. Is this what mom wanted? I hope so, I'm not sure. All of that could be remedied by just giving them the gift of talking about it first, early on, helping be part of that conversation. So those are some of the approaches that we take with older adults. It can be very complicated. It does take time. Be aware that you won't resolve everything in 1 or 2 meetings. This should be an ongoing conversation. There is a wonderful book that we were recently made aware of called How to Say It to Seniors. And a lot of what we've learned about how important it is to honor the decisions, even the bad decisions, that your parents make, how important that is to their sense of their ability to retain their independence and control. There are other ways to go around that to help them understand that these discussions are helpful to their children and are going to enable them to continue to have some measure of control. But it's going to take a little bit of time and study on your part to get it right. We are here to help if that's something that you think you do need help with. And like Margaret said, Jeanette has our contact information. And I'm sure she'll be happy to pass that on. I have a handout, a one-page handout in which I've condensed all of this information. And if anybody's interested, if I went too fast and you didn't take notes, please email me. Jeanette has my email address, and I'll be happy to send it on to you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Laurie. Are there any questions out there? You guys can either unmute yourself or put it in the chat room. I think I had the question that I'm usually not, that I'm always unclear about, the need for a trust versus a will. And when exactly do you need what, each of those?
Well, that's rather a large question.
No wonder I don't understand it then. Okay.
A will is a simple instrument that will tell your loved ones what your intentions are for your estate after you pass. And that's all well and good, but if you've got substantial assets over $100,000, you're going to have to submit the will to the probate court. They're going to have to take a look at it, make sure that it's legally binding, and then they're going to administer it, or they're going to oversee the administration of it through your personal representative, who is your agent named in the will. So it's a court proceeding that involves filing fees, and on a limited basis, there may be some hearings. A lot of folks are hoping to avoid that. And the way they do that is, instead of a will, they will use a trust. A trust will accomplish the same thing. Plus, it will help advise your family members, your agents, as to how you want your assets administered after you pass. If, for instance, there's a family home that you don't want sold or passed on, you want to make sure that it stays in the family. And the way to do that is to offer guidance in a long-term, over a long-term via a trust document. And that document does not have to be administered by the probate court. It's a private document, and it can accomplish many of the same things without having the necessity of having to go to court. There's a lot of different kinds of trusts, which my partner is an expert on, but we won't go into that now. That's just a basic explanation of the differences between the two types of documents.
I'm going to thank Margaret and Laurie for sharing their wisdom with us today and also being available. And I really appreciate the two of you participating.